Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and today we are going to get you ready for all your pre-release needs, whether that is at your friendly local game store or right here on Arena with a sealed event. And we're doing that by talking about the mechanics that you will see in this set and the different limited archetypes as well. But before we get into all that, I'm sure you know that the 5-year foundation set in Standard is going to change a lot of things, not just in Standard, but in particular for budget and free-to-play players. What you may not know is you can make a big impact around here by making a funding choice through our Patreon, whether you're just helping keep the lights on every month or you're making contributions towards specific content or hardware upgrades. Just know all the Patreon funding goes back into the community. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Alright, so the first thing to know about our foundation set is there are so many keywords. In fact, this set has more keywords than any other premier set in history, with the exception of one, that of course being Time Spiral, that had every keyword in existence at that time that was not from an unset. There are just 4 keywords that are going to be more of a focus though for foundations. Those are Flashback, Prowess, Raid, and Threshold. We're going to talk about each of those briefly right here. Alright, so let's start things off with Flashback, which in simplest terms mean you can cast the spell for its regular cost from your hand, or you can cast it for its flashback cost from your graveyard, potentially unlocking some 2-for-1 scenarios that can be very profitable for you in Limited. This keyword is found primarily in blue, black, and red, and is mostly here for the spell-based decks like the blue-red Spells Matter. Very similarly, the keyword Prowess is mostly here for the blue-red Spells Matter. In fact, those are the only 2 colors you really find these particular cards in. For those that maybe aren't familiar with Prowess, the creature gets +1/+1 every time you cast a non-creature spell until end of turn. So again, if your deck is balanced properly with creatures like this and the right number of non-creature spells, you can really deal a lot of damage. Raid is an extremely simple keyword mechanic to understand because it only cares whether you attack that turn or not. It really doesn't get much easier to understand than that. If you have attacked, the raid will trigger, and something either happens as a permanent enters the battlefield, or in some cases, raid can trigger on a permanent multiple times, turn after turn. Obviously, these raid triggers will happen in the second main phase, so be careful when you play your permanents so you get those raid triggers. This keyword is found primarily in red and black, but there are a couple blue cards out there with it as well, particularly for that pirate sub-theme. Similarly easy to understand is the threshold mechanic, which simply put cares about whether there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard. This is going to show up primarily in that blue-black Dimir threshold deck. Many of us are already familiar with this archetype as we currently have it in Standard. The one thing to really watch here when playing Foundations Limited is the overlap between the threshold mechanic and the flashback mechanic, or I guess I should say the lack of overlap. A lot of times removing a spell from your graveyard by casting it for its threshold cost may inadvertently take you off threshold, and that can be problematic. Make sure you're watching for that. And before we wrap up our keyword discussion and our mechanical discussion, Matt would want you to know there's also links down in the doobly-doo, aka the description, to help you find some evergreen keyword videos that I did earlier in my career, as well as the applicable articles from Wizards of the Coast if you need more details on the keywords we just talked about. Alright, so I admit we've only talked about 3 different limited archetypes up to this point, but rest assured this set, like most others, has a 10 full 2-color limited archetypes. One of my personal favorites that came back in this set, a longtime favorite, is Blue-White Skies. And I believe blue and white have something like 17 lower rarity items which care about flying. So this one has a lot of potential to be very powerful. Next up, we've got red and green's 4-power Matters deck. And well, to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in this one because at low level rarities, those commons and uncommons, there's only about a half dozen payoffs and enablers. So this one feels like you kind of need to get lucky with your higher rarity picks or what you open in your sealed pool. And well, we know how luck can be sometimes. When you compare that to green-white's +1/+1 counters Matters theme, you get a very different picture. At lower rarity, there we have 18 or so, so roughly 3 times the red-green payoffs and enablers, making it feel like a much deeper archetype by far. And of course, black-white life gain is going to be in full effect with 21 payoffs and enablers at lower rarities. This looks to be one of the early leaders for constructed, but depending upon your pool or your draft pool, you might get very lucky with this as a limited archetype as well. And last but certainly not least, our final 3 archetypes is black-green Graveyards Matters, centered around the morbid keyword. Also, we've got a very classic Boros aggro go wide style deck, and often befitting the green-blue ramp deck, all of which look to be very viable archetypes for limited, as well as long-term constructed viability, because of course, let's not forget, Foundations is going to be in standard for about 5 years, if not longer. Now that we've got the keyword mechanics and the archetypes out of the way, there are a couple other things you need to be aware of. No matter how you're going to be experiencing the Foundation set or Magic in general post Foundations, you need to be aware of a rules change and how it affects combat damage determination. I will have a link down in the doobly-doo, not only to a video that I did breaking down the topic for you very briefly, but also to the Wizards of the Coast article over on the Mothership, breaking that down in its entirety. And now I want to take just a minute to talk specifically to those people that are going to be doing pre-releases for this set at their friendly local game store. First off, plan on using sleeves, whether that means taking an existing set from home or picking some up at the store. You're going to want to protect your brand new cards from all of those terrible things that can happen in real life. Secondly, there are a lot of mechanics like we talked about in this set. If you see something you don't understand, particularly on your own cards, when you get done building your sealed pool, grab a judge and ask questions before the round starts. If you encounter something in a round, throw a hand up and ask a judge. Never forget, your opponent may not know any more than you do, or in some cases may not have your best interest at heart. Alright guys, so that's what I think needs to be on your radar when it comes to Foundations and your early experiences, whether that's going to be a pre-release event at your local LGS or a sealed pool right here on Arena. But get down in those comments, let me know how it went for you, tell me about those sick pulls, did you get on some win streaks, tell me about the bad beats. It happens to us all, and well, we can all learn from one another. And before we go, while every member of this community is important to me, I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to those patrons providing financial support and keeping the Stronghold from being a complete financial black hole. And of course, let me leave you with some suggestions for your next step here on the channel.